And hello, everyone. This is Antony Scandale from Victoria, BC. I have a special guest here today, David Knapp-Fisher, and he's a wonderful speaker. I met him a few months ago, and he's here with me. He wanted to talk to you about something very interesting called the Connectivity Ninja that's going to be coming out very soon. He has a wonderful story also about his personal life. However, with all the trials and tribulations, nobody is perfect, and David is the first person to actually tell you that we can all just go out and do what we're supposed to do, but then learn from our mistakes and actually just grow with that. So he's here with me now. David, how are you this afternoon?
Oh, I am good. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and like I've been telling the rest of my podcast guests that this is about you and about what you've done, and I want you to inspire as many people. Like anyone who is living on this planet right now has a story, and has a story to share. But you've got a wonderful story. If I remember correctly, when I was reading on your website, that you were a high school dropout, but then turned entrepreneur. So just take me through that quickly, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, of course. And I'm glad that this podcast is all about me, because I'm a chronic narcissist. So you've nailed it right there. I was a great student until about grade 8 or 9, and then I discovered a social life sort of thing. And to be honest, I had a lot more fun socializing, but I just didn't learn well in school. For some reason, the way teachers spoke to me didn't resonate, and no word of a lie, would fall asleep in school. The teacher would start talking about the tundra of the Pacific Northwest, and I'd be like just sawing logs. So this did not bode very well with my teachers, and I walked out of grade 12 with a big fat F stamped on both my report card and my forehead. Felt very ashamed and embarrassed, but knew I was a hard worker. I just couldn't figure it out. So I went to work in kitchens, because that's pretty much all you can do when you don't have an education. And I took that as far as becoming a chef. I went to school to become a chef. And I realized that even as a chef, because being a chef back in the 80s was not the same as being a celebrity chef these days. But I realized that even, with a professional, a trade, I wasn't going to earn the money to live the lifestyle that I truly wanted. And I was very, very frustrated. And in my frustration, as you've noted today, when the student was ready, the teacher would appear. Yes. And it appeared in the form of a book called Seeds of Greatness, the 10 Best Kept Secrets of Success. And it was by an author named Dr. Dennis Waitley. And I bought that book. I remember it was $5. I bought it. I was so excited. I ran home. I read it twice within the next 2 days, and that was it for me. I turned the corner. I discovered teachers who could speak to me in a way that I'd understand, who weren't just blathering from a point of, a classroom about things that they've never done. These were real people that had learned in the trenches, and I realized that with grit and hustle and hard work, and using them as my mentors, I could do well. And I wound up eventually, over the next 25 years, moving my way up to becoming a corporate hotel executive. I was a consultant for 2 major chains, and then I became an entrepreneur when we built and then managed and ran a $1 million restaurant at a ski hill at Sun Peak Ski Resort, which I did for 8 years. Right. And then so I had that. And always had my entrepreneur roots. And, I just told you all the really cool stuff. I mean, along the way, there were many failures. I had 3 businesses that failed. I remember being $25,000 in debt with no income. I certainly had this myriad of littered graveyard of relationships along the way. So, and I think it's really important when we have these conversations that we don't just talk about the good stuff. We really need to dig deep to the things that have gone wrong, not wrong, but the hard lessons in our life too, because if there's one lesson I really try to preach in my work, is that failure, often massive failure, is the most definite prerequisite to any kind of success.
I'm just going to think about that for a second here, what you just said, because that's very, very important that I just absorb what you just said, especially for the listeners. I'll say this right away because this is something I've been hiding for a very long time, and I've only just recently mentioned this to some people, especially some loved ones. But I actually failed grade 2, and that for me to say that out loud, and eventually this podcast is going to be reaching a lot of people. I did, and for some reason, I don't know why, it just became like this sort of shameful thing that, I guess because with, when you go through school, you're trying to get the A's. But for me, I hated school. I'm just like with you. I didn't like school, hated school, had other things in mind, like looking at girls kind of thing, playing hockey. But that for me was my biggest failure as a kid growing up. And I never did well in school after that, with the exception of going to BCIT to become to get my diploma in television broadcasting, because I was interested in doing that. So yeah, for me, I'm kind of chuckling saying this, but for me it's hard to say this, but that was a hard lesson to overcome.
The interesting thing too, because what is grade 2, about 8 years old, 9 years old?
That, yeah.
You get this label, and this is why I struggled for years with this label. We're labeled with this big fat failure. Society tells us we're a failure because we didn't fit into their little box.
Yeah.
Look at the most successful entrepreneurs, and they don't fit in that box. That's why they're successful entrepreneurs. I always laugh. I always laugh when I hear these people say, oh, I've got this grade. I go up against guys with huge degrees and things, but I look at their lives and their lifestyles, and they're just following somebody else's rule, right? Because they're stuck in their label is I need to do this, or their label is I need to do that. My suggestion to you would be identify that failure may have made you that failure. And for those of you listening, I'm holding up my quotation fingers. May have driven you in some ways. I mean, I know it drove me, and it was often unpleasant, and life is not supposed to be pleasant all the time. Yeah. Another very important lesson to understand, we're not supposed to, ride rainbows and unicorns and eat ice cream every day, because until we have a little adversity, we can't appreciate the good stuff. I love the life that I get to live today, but, it's not without its challenges. And it is, like anybody. And it's important to understand that those two need to go hand in hand. It's when we spend all our time dwelling on the negative versus looking at the great things that are going on for us that we have problems.
Right. So in other words, it's kind of like saying when you look at the negative, it's kind of like looking at, okay, well, where is the positive out of that? Where is finding the gold is what Ed Foreman would say, go find the gold with every situation. Well,
where are you going to put your focus? Where are we going to put our focus? On the things that go wrong? Well, then we're just going to be miserable, right? You go out with a beautiful woman, you have a great date, and then you spill wine on your shirt. You go home beating yourself for what an idiot you are because you spilled wine on your shirt and you embarrass yourself, and she doesn't care. She's like, what a nice guy, and he was so honest about spilling the wine. But we focus on what we think is wrong instead of just going, hey, you know what, this was a great date, having a little fun, and whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
This isn't positive thinking. This is not like, you can do it. This is like common sense. We're not put on this earth to be miserable. So why are we focusing so on it? But one of the big challenges, if I can just say this, is that we set ourselves up for failure because we create poor habits. People wonder why they have no time and they're too busy and they can't do the things they want. But, there's a very important lesson to learn. There is no more time. We all get the same amount. It's 24 hours in a day. Right. How you choose to use it is the thing. And I know people, as you know, I run a popular meetup group, but how many people don't show up because of lame ass excuses? Mm-hmm. They show up at the last moment. We bring in this really good speakers. I bring in some really top speakers. My last guy charges $5,000 a keynote, but he's a friend of ours, so he speaks. We charge $10. Half the people didn't show up because it was a sunny day and they wanted to do this, or one said she needed some self-care. Well, we showed up, we honored our commitment, we brought this valuable content, and then this person doesn't show up, or these people don't show up because they're spending their time differently. Yeah. Call me in 5 years and show me how they're doing.
Yeah.
Habits are very important.
I'm guilty of it too sometimes, where little habits, kick in, and then, But then every once in a while, there's that little voice that's getting louder now that says, no, dude, you set a bunch of goals on a piece of paper. And as soon as you write down stuff on a piece of paper, that becomes your contract. You have to see that through, right?
See, I shared with you before we went on the air that I got up at 5:30 this morning.
Yeah.
I got an hour's worth of writing in because my goal is to write 3 hours a day. Good. Then I went to the gym, and I'm on the treadmill at the gym watching the clock because I made a commitment to you. Mm-hmm. Now, if I'd called you and said, dude, I'm busy, can you schedule tomorrow? You would have very graciously said, okay, no problem. But inside, your mind might have said, and it should have said, you're an asshole because I'm here ready. I showed up. I made a commitment to you. So I want to honor that commitment. So you can say, instead of you're an asshole, you can say, David is a man who honors his commitment.
Right.
That's more important to me. So I'd rather blow off 10 minutes on the treadmill to show Antony. I'd rather spend my time showing Antony that my commitment to him is genuine than not. And I think it's in those habits how we choose to use our time. Are we on Facebook an hour a day and on Netflix 2 hours a night? Or are we taking that time to read a book that's going to benefit us?
Yeah.
Or an hour volunteering, or time with our children or our loved ones? Where are we investing our time? Because there's only 24 hours a day. There is no more time. So we need to use it wisely.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I'm going to segue into travel really quick because this is important to me. For me, a long time ago, I was working at a television broadcasting station in Vancouver, and unfortunately, I was unhappy. I'm like, I need to change. I need to go out and do something. My heart kept saying, you got to go travel. I ended up leaving my job altogether to travel to Florence. I ended up living in Florence for 10 weeks. As soon as I got off the train from Munich, I had no place to go. I didn't know much of the language. It was like 6:30 in the morning, and I had to ask questions where the nearest hostel was. That was crazy. But what happened was, my heart said, okay, you have to go that way. And for some reason, I'm like, okay, where's this coming from? I went that way. Within moments, I found exactly where I needed to be. And then 10 weeks later, I'm still in Florence and I'm studying Italian. It was the most wonderful experience ever with travel. But it was one of those things, going back to what you were saying, that how you make use of your time. Mm-hmm. I was unhappy. So I had to change something. I said, no, my heart's saying we have to go travel. So go travel. Mm-hmm. I'm so glad I did. I've been back to Europe about 5 times now, and I can't imagine how many countries you've been, because I know for a fact that you love to travel. And but where did that spark happen to travel? For me? Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm a definite traveler. I'm actually off to Turkey next month. I'm very excited. That is a true bucket list item for me. Wow. I've had a big year, actually. I spent a week in Portland just 2 weeks ago, where I go every year for a conference. And I was in Guatemala this year doing some service work. Travel came very naturally for me. I was a naval brat, and we moved around a lot. And one of my father's posts was, we were stationed in the south of England in a very, very small little village, which was about 20 miles away from the coast, where the ferry went directly over to Holland, not far from Amsterdam.
Right.
So for 3 years, I got to travel back and forth to Amsterdam probably a dozen times, because I had an uncle living in Amsterdam. So I was exposed to Amsterdam and travel at a very young age. I got to live in 2 foreign cultures, like at 8 years old, and that was a game changer for me. I mean, it totally made me go like, wow. I remember the first time I was in Holland, I had cheese, black coffee. I'm 8 years old, right? Cheese, black coffee, and bread for breakfast. And I asked my mom, like, where are the eggs? And she's like, they don't eat eggs for breakfast. I'm like, that is so cool. Yeah. And that was it for me. And about when I was in my early 20s, I decided to go back to Europe and visit my old home and things. And I backpacked with a friend for 3 months all over Europe. I think I hit like 9-10 countries, saw everything, and that was it for me. I was crazy. And Turkey will be my 40th country. Some I visited multiple times. I've been to Mexico 25 times. Wow. I've been to Europe probably half a dozen times. all over. The only continent I haven't gone to is Antarctica at this point, and I'm holding out on that one. I'm not sure if I
But you've
want
been to the Arctic, is what you're saying.
well,
Sort of.
not the Arctic itself. So maybe there's no. I counted them. I think I'm right. Listen, again, high school dropout. I just go do stuff. It doesn't mean I know everything about it.
Right.
No travel, but I do want to touch on the importance of travel.
Yes.
We live in a world today, especially these days, where everybody is very negative about foreign cultures and particularly coming out of the States. And I had this conversation with somebody just last night. They're complaining about our immigration laws and refugees, and I get really sickened hearing people who get all their opinion from the internet, who never actually go to these countries and meet the people. One of the blessings that I've had in my life is I've been able to go live with some people from these very, very poor countries. And when I say live, I mean I go on programs where we spend 2 or 3 days with them in their homes and we actually see it. And there's so much fear mongering, coming from the States and partly in Canada too, about different cultures. And these are just people that want to live. There's radical people here in our country too. Mm-hmm. Traveling breaks down that ignorance, and that is the word. It's ignorance, and traveling breaks it down. I had dinner last week with a refugee family from Kenya. It was a program that we were doing in Portland, and we had dinner with a refugee family. I actually posted it on my Facebook post.
That was that picture.
Yeah, and this family had recently gone to Portland, and they were accepted as refugees. Their son had been there for 2 years, and he spoke perfect English. He's at university studying engineering. Just amazing. And this is a guy that spent 13 years of his life living in a refugee camp, and he's 22 now. And I sat and I spoke with him for about 45 minutes, and he was the nicest, the hardest working, kindest, well-spoken young man. And it's like, it's not until we meet people do we understand. And that's what travel gives us. It opens our eyes. If somebody doesn't understand something, they need to go learn about it, not from the internet, but go experience it. You can't describe how a roller coaster feels to somebody. They have to ride it.
That's a great way to say it, actually. How you don't know how a roller coaster actually feels. You're right. My take on travel, because I've done this, I haven't traveled as much as you have, but it happens every time when I go travel that all these people, you come to their country, and if you can try to speak a little bit of their language, their heart opens up even more. Mm-hmm. When you meet these people, they already want to meet you, especially like for example, even when I go to Germany every once in a while, I've been there 4 times now, they don't want to speak German to you if you're trying to speak German to them. They want to try to, speak English to you. They want to connect with you on that level. What I also find with travel is that it's good for the world and it's good for you. Your brain starts to expand. You start to realize that we're all the same. It doesn't matter the color, creed, race, any of that. What matters is that you have to connect on the emotional level, that we're all the same. We all have the same levels of emotion. And so that makes us all human being. It's funny, people say, I'm going to Turkey, and one of my friends says, Turkey is so dangerous, it's ISIS. And I'm like, I would rather walk through parts of Istanbul than parts of downtown Vancouver. I'm telling you. And until 6 months ago, there was a part of Quadra Street here in Victoria full of tent city that I was terrified to go by because I had people throwing things at my car every time I drove by. So, I'll take Istanbul. I'll take those countries. It's really, at the end of the day, we are on this earth for a very small amount of time. The question is, what do you want to achieve before you go? I mean, there's a great line, I think it was William Wallace who said, not a coward dies 1,000 deaths, a brave man only one. And I think that sort of goes to cowardice, not just in battle, but cowardice in life. If we're too afraid of everything around us, and it's so bad these days because of the constant hype. A friend of mine has this Twitter feed that pops up every 2 minutes with some form of negative hatred. And I'm like, why do you read that? Yeah. And it's just crazy. And it's just all ignorance. It's like, this happened in Pakistan. This is what, chemtrail, all these crazy things. Yeah. That these theorists have, but they're not living their lives. They're spending their entire days bitching and complaining.
Well, not just complaining, but
Yeah.
fabricating or coming up with these conspiracies, and they're not going out and enjoying their families, or going to see a foreign country, or going to help a child, or going to volunteer somewhere and bringing real joy into their family. They're so big on creating all this drama, and
Yeah.
I only imagine when those people come to the end of their life, they're not going to have lived, and that's going to be horrible for them. So that's what travel brings to me. It brings this sense of wonder. I mean, and let's be clear, when we travel, we're not stupid. I don't say, I'm just going to pop into Afghanistan,
Yeah.
and see what's
Yeah.
going on. I mean,
Yeah.
we obviously take measures, but travel is very, very important to me. It's probably big, but other than becoming a parent, it's been the biggest game changer in my life.
Right. With before I go on to another subject here, I was going to just make a mention of this. I'm sure when you travel, you're always traveling with safe people. And it's one of those things well, I believe anyways, when you go out and travel with safe people, generally speaking, your environment is going to be safe as well. And you start meeting other safe people. It's when you go in with that negative attitude that you start drawing in all that other crap that comes along with it. But then again, stuff is going to happen anyways, right? Whether it's good or bad, but it's just a matter of like dealing with it. So with me is David Knapp-Fisher. I was going to just briefly ask you about a program coming up that's called the Connectivity Ninja, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited about this. So, I've been a professional speaker for about 10 years, and I always speak on personal leadership and development. And something that has constantly come to the surface of the work that I do is people are becoming less and less connected as individuals. They're relying more on their phones. They're for information. They're listening to music all day long and ignoring the person next to them. They're not being friendly, and yet society is lonelier than ever. I mean, it's a fact. We are a very lonely, desperate society. Scores of people are single, but they don't know how to find a mate. Scores of people have no friends, and they can't figure it out. The average man does not have one friend that he can call a true male friend that he can confide and tell his feelings to.
That's
and
scary.
This is an epidemic. This is a problem. And really, we have the skills, we just don't use them because we're so caught up in this zeitgeist of cell phones and internet and Googling and like everything, instead of turning and actually saying hello and having a one-on-one conversation. I mean, not one of the people listening today has not had the experience of being out at a restaurant or bar with somebody and get totally ignored by that person while they're on their phone texting somebody.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's so rude. And then these people wonder why they don't have friends, So what the Connectivity Ninja sets out to do is it's going to be an entire business. I'm a speaker, so I actually speak at conferences on this because we want to teach people at the conferences how to meet people over the next 3 days so they don't leave after 3 or 4 days or however long the conference is, having just talked to the same two people they arrived with. Because whenever you have a conference, let's just say you have a conference of 1,000 people, they're all there for the same reason. They're all there for the same topic. They have the same interest. Like they've already subscribed to the club, but they just don't talk to each other. So the Connectivity Ninja teaches them in a really fun and interactive way how to connect with each other. So they leave at the end of that conference with 5 friends, 10 friends, contacts, support systems, all of those good things that they go to those conferences for. So we help them get that. But we've also identified that this is needed in everyday life. So Connectivity Ninja will also be running podcasts with people talking about connectivity skills that have helped them achieve their success. It'll be online, maybe an online course, but it's definitely going to be in-person courses teaching people how to connect every single day. Because our goal is that we create a more friendlier environment and less of a digital environment.
Yeah, I love that. It's a great idea. For sure.
Like people are lonely, they're sad. We can help.
You're right, and I see it all the time with people. Even if I'm walking down the street, like in Victoria is a fairly friendly city, I would say, and you'd probably admit to that too, because we, as viewers or listeners listening, David and I both live in Victoria, and it is a very clean, beautiful city. But sometimes, man, you try to even just smile or acknowledge someone. They kind of look back at you like a deer caught in the headlights, going, why are you looking at me? Or that they keep their head down, or that they're pretending not to listen to you, even though they got the headbuds on. They're listening to their audio. they can hear you, but they just don't want to acknowledge you. And that it's a sad thing, and and I'm finding that it's a lot of the younger generations. I guess I don't want to really label it as millennials, but it seems to me like kids who are like in the teenagers are not really responsive or willing to engage in other people and talk to them.
Well, two things there. Like first of all, the guy who like hears you doesn't want to say anything. I mean, that's the culture that we've created with this.
Yeah.
And what a connectivity ninja does is they're insistent to not force that conversation, but make it heard first.
Right.
Because if we wait for other people to come to us, for example, let's just say that, let's talk about how you and I met. I was having coffee with a mutual friend, and you
Right.
and I had met, and you came over and we introduced ourselves, and then it was like, hey, well, this is what I do. And something was like, you know what, that sounds really cool. Well, listen, let's get together and have a conversation. If you just said, hi, this is David, this is Antony, and then nodded sternly and put back in our earbuds, we would not be having this conversation
Exactly.
today, right? And it really is that simple, but somebody's got to take that responsibility. The connectivity ninja teaches us to be the one to take the responsibility.
Right.
Because we don't know who that other person is. We don't know their story. We don't know if we can help them achieve their goal. We don't know if they can help us achieve our goal if we don't create that first connection.
And then
that's
there's
what the ninja does.
Yeah, and that's the whole line with the whole idea of like the 6 degrees of separation, which I believe is even smaller now. I think even more so now that it is basically the time to go out and meet as many people as you can, because you never know. I mean, there's a friend of yours whose mother is not doing very well, and she needs to talk to you because you have some answers for her. You know what I mean? Like we do need to connect. I agree with you. I can't wait for this connectivity ninja to come out. And you know what? I'd be more than willing to give you a hand with it too.
Yeah, maybe, and it's not even just about, maybe there's a relationship there. Sometimes it's just nice to be nice to people. So we go in, like one thing everybody can do, so simple, is anytime you have a service person in front of you, the counter girl at McDonald's, the barista at Starbucks, the cashier at Walmart, before you give them your stuff or take their order, look them in the eye and say, how's your day going? And sit there, genuinely ask, and wait for them to answer. You try this today, and you're going to be stunned at how many of them are shocked that somebody treated them like a human being. Yeah. And I always do that. I'll go, how's your day going today? And they'll go, oh, well, it's great. I'm going to be off in an hour. And I'll say, well, the sun is shining. I hope you get out to enjoy it. Yeah. And they'll go, oh, yeah, well, I'm meeting with my granddaughter. And they're suddenly excited because somebody's treating them like a person, right? And then I go, well, that's great. Well, you know what? I'll hurry up and get out of your way. So just this stuff today. Thank you. That simple little exchange of kindness, human kindness, means the world to people. And if we start doing those to our baristas and our McDonald's counter people and our Walmart checkout people and the guy who we pay our gas to, then it makes it easier for us to do it when we're standing in line or at the bank to say to the person next to us, hey, how's your day going? You having a good day? And that's how we start opening our world, is by opening ourselves. That's right. But if we instead stand there and look at our phones, have our earbuds in, and ignore the people, nobody wins. And that's sad.
That is true. That creates that.
And I just wanted to touch on your point with the millennials. Yeah. This is really important. I mean, we're all very quick to jump on these guys, and there's no question that there is a feeling of entitlement with a lot of these kids. But remember, 2 things: they are our children, so we created them. I'm 56 years old. My son is a millennial. Mm-hmm. So we created these kids to be the way they are, and we're the ones that gave them phones when they were 14 years old. Yeah. Paid for those phones, and then they watched us as we ignored our wives, our spouses at dinner tables, and then we wonder why our kids are rude. So we basically our society trained, and of course I'm being very general because there's some great parents who didn't do this, but there's a lot who do. We're complaining our kids have no work ethic when they've watched us be this way, and they were born into it. We developed this. You and I didn't have cell phones 15 years ago. No. When those kids were born. That's right? True. So they learned it from somewhere. That's a hard truth. People don't want to hear that, but that's the hard truth. Yeah.
And again, with me is David Knapp-Fisher. David, thank you very, very much for doing this podcast with me today. I love talking with you. You are a man of passion and a man of truth. And I think hopefully we can see you sometime, even up on stage. Do you know the next time you'll be up on stage to chat with people?
I'm actually doing a couple of things in Sydney in September, but I'm actually kind of held off a little bit right now. I'm really focusing on putting the finishing touches to a book that I've written.
Good for you.
It does feature Connectivity Ninja strategies, but it's called Punch Failure in the Face, Then Buy It a Beer. And it's 85 life strategies that I've learned through the ups and downs, crazy roller coaster that's been my life, of how I basically went from high school dropout to, living the life that I get to live, which is, although it's certainly not the best life in the world, but it's certainly a lot worse than it could be. I retired at 52 years old, and I travel, I speak, and I've been able to create a life. But of course, it's not been without its trials and tribulations, and that's really what we focus on in the book. My goal with this book, we punch failure in the face, then buy it a beer, is a way of saying, accept the failure as part of, make friends with failure.
Yeah.
Right? Like, show it who's boss by not letting it defeat you. Then buy it a beer, because let's face it, it's going to teach you something. It's a friend.
No kidding.
And these are 84 or 85 lessons that I've learned on how to do this, and then learn lessons and move forward. I think that's really important stuff for us. Otherwise, we sit around being miserable.
No kidding. And that's the last thing we need. Last thing you need is to be sitting at home and doing nothing, and then atrophy sets in, and then all of a sudden you're sick.
Yeah, I mean, life is short. Life is short. I have a friend of mine just lost his wife, 35 years old. Right? Crazy. People around are dying every day at 50 years old. I do not want to die knowing I haven't lived. And everything that I've learned, I've tried to encapsulate in these 84, 85 little ideas. It's broken down into various categories too. There's life lessons, there's self-education, connectivity ninja secrets, dollars and cents. I like to talk a lot about money. Money is very important to me. Without money, we can't do the things we want. I'm not a rich man, but I'm not a poor man. But I think we put too much focus on money, but then not enough on how to use it properly as a society. Yeah,
very true. David, where can we meet you? Where can we reach you at if someone wanted to look at your website?
I have a website, davidknapp-fisher.com. It's going to be up for a few more months before I launch heavily into the Connectivity Ninja. But I always love to hear from people and offer. I love to have conversations. Or conversations, or certainly support people where I can. Yeah.
And he's a wonderful person. If anyone in Victoria, if you do get a chance, he does run Inspired Victoria, which I hope will continue. I guess that's depending on yourself, I guess, David.
Let me talk about it. So Inspired Victoria is a meetup community that we've built. We built it about a year and a half ago. Well, I built it, and then I've got a young man that helps me. And once a month we bring in speakers. Our goal is to create an environment that truly passionate, like-minded people can come together, share ideas, get support, and help each other to lift their life to the next level, whatever that looks like.
Yep.
They might be, it's professional. What we aren't at Inspired Victoria is networkers. In fact, we loathe that word. We're connectors. We connect from the heart, not the head. And we have two firm rules at our meetings. You can't talk about what you do for work. You have to talk about what you do for fun and what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And number two is you can't hand out business cards till the end of the night.
Right.
Because when you learn who somebody is as a person, it's far more interesting than what they do for a living. What they do for a living brings them money. What they do for fun brings them passion and joy and happiness. And I want to meet the joy and happiness in a person. Because if I like that person and I'm inspired by what they're doing and their commitment, then if I find out they're an accountant and I need an accountant, they're going to be the first guy I go to.
Right, yeah.
Or if I find out the woman is a graphic designer and I need help, she's the first one I'm going to go to because I love her passion about kayaking.
Yeah.
So that's what we try to do with Inspired Victoria. My challenge with the group, if I'm going to be frank, is that our numbers have grown. We're at almost 1,300 people signed up, but less than 10% of those actually ever show up, which tells me they're not very inspired. And it's a lot of effort to bring in speakers, effort, time, everybody preps. And people just don't seem to have the commitment. So rather than view it as a failure, because I don't think it is a failure, because I've met some amazing people, and you've been to a couple of events, we're going to retool it and privatize it so that people have to basically apply to get in.
Oh, okay.
And if they're accepted, they're going to have to basically say, I really want to be a part of this because it's great. Not, I want to be a part of this because it's great, but I'll show up if Game of Thrones isn't on. Which is what we get a lot of now.
It seems to be Netflix or just any other television show right now. It just seems to be the go-to thing to do, sit on the couch. I'm guilty of it sometimes. I do that sometimes. But there's a limit. I put a limit, how much, right? I can do this.
There's nothing wrong with watching Game of Thrones. Let me be clear. What's wrong is if you tell somebody you'll be at their event, or you make an appointment with somebody and then you cancel last minute because you're watching TV, or you're just tired because it's been a long day. We all have long days. True. But if two people agree to do something, they both need to show up. Otherwise, one is honored. It's like I said, showing up for your podcast this morning. Yeah. I cut my workout short because I said I would be here. Yeah. And I want to be around people that honor their word, not people that are, influenced by a television program that's going to be on every day this week. Or the fact that they're a little tired because it was a longer day at work, We all work long days. Yeah, Those are the people that live life at a higher level. Those are the people that, punch failure in the face, right? Those are the people that just live those amazing lives. And those are the people that, quite frankly, come and speak at our events. For example, I've got a guy coming in a week, actually, Dan Buckner. Dan is an international consultant. I tried to reach him today. I couldn't get him. He's in Shanghai. He's always talking about design thinking. He's an amazing entrepreneur, but he wants to talk about the struggles he had to become an international speaker. Who couldn't learn from that?
No kidding,
right?
I could.
Struggles he had, right? Yeah. And then we've got another lady, Andrea Boy's coming, a young lady. She's the PR volunteer person for Special Olympics Victoria, and she's going to come, and she's bringing 2 Special Olympic athletes to come and share what Special Olympics does and how it's changed their lives. Yeah. Who doesn't want to see that? Yeah. These are really amazing stories, and these people work hard to bring this to us. So if somebody thinks that sounds interesting but can't be bothered to show up, here's my question to them. What else in your life do you think is interesting but you don't bother to show up for? And what's that going to look like in 10 years?
No kidding. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because that's a habit. You can save $5 a day or you can spend it on coffee. It's your choice. What are both those scenarios going to look like 5-10 years from now? That's the question. Mm-hmm. We are our habits, whether it's connecting with people by saying hello, whether it's buying that coffee, or whether it's honoring our commitment to ourselves by reading the book, or going to hear the interesting people, or watching TV, never getting out of our sweats, laying around on Saturday because it's been such a long work week. Yeah. We are built and defined by the quality of our lives comes down to the quality of our commitments and actions, period. Yeah. So I think we need to choose wisely. And Inspired Victoria is an outlet for people to make that choice, I like to think.
Well said. So with me is David Knapp-Fisher. David, thank you again for joining me today. If you want to find him, he's on davidknappfisher.com. And again, thank you again. We'll have to do this again sometime. I know we will, actually. I have a feeling we will. And
my pleasure. Thank you so much for including me. And I really hope that people enjoyed what I had to say. And if they didn't, that's good too, because I love a good debate.
But you're you're right. No, but he does speak from the heart, folks. And if you do get a chance to see him live, he does really speak from the heart. There's a big difference when what he said earlier about speaking from the heart versus the head. Makes a big difference, and you actually feel him when he speaks. So again, thank you again, David.
And if they're local, I would love to invite anybody to check us out at Inspired Victoria.
And that's on Facebook, correct?
It's on Meetup.
Oh, right, on Meetup. Okay.
Meetup.com, and just go on there, find Inspired Victoria, and come by and visit us and say hello. We'd love to talk to you.
Excellent. All right, David, thank you again. And this is Antony Scandale signing off. I do have a couple more guests coming up, which actually, now that David's still here, I have Vicki McLeod coming on tomorrow to do, and I'm very excited to do that too, because I read her book, which is wonderful. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. But and it's because of you and Inspire Victoria. That's how we connected, and so we're gonna have a good chat tomorrow.
That is great. Vicky's amazing. She helped me craft my views on how to use social media successfully. It's amazing. I love her. So I'm glad you guys are getting together.
Yeah, and she's such a wonderful person too. So it's. Yeah, I can't wait. But anyways, so that's it for me. So every second week we're going to have a podcast that's going to come out. And if you want to find out where I am, it's at antonyscandale.com. And if you or somebody else would like a copy of my book, you can go to letgobook.net and you can purchase a signed copy there. Or you can go to Amazon and find it there. Let Go, A Little Guide Put to Freedom. Also, as you probably already have heard, I was part of a book series called Positive Mental Attitude, and that book, we're so happy to say that we went international bestseller. So if you'd like a copy of that, you can find it also on Amazon, Positive Mental Attitude. So that's it for me. We'll talk in a couple weeks, and coming up next would be Vicki McLeod, who is a wonderful, wonderful person who's into marketing, and you're going to see or hear more about her soon. We'll talk soon, and remember, ignite your inner power and watch your world change. Take care.